And that's why.
Okay, I'll call this meeting to order of Winnebago County. Second agenda item, approval of agenda.
Second.
Supervisor Bender, second by Supervisor Powers. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Item number 4, public comment.
David Kane, 1573 Pondview Drive, Nina. I'm here just for two things and that I wanted to talk about, and one of them is the survey, that mandatory survey from the Wisconsin DNR that we had to do this year for 2023 to get funding from the state. That survey as far as what people are interested in. And somebody on the committee mentioned that maybe a good idea would be to put some kind of incentive, like some kind of prize of some kind to get the people involved and actually take the time to fill it out. And I think you should designate a certain amount of money. I'm thinking like $300, $500 prizes or something, just something to get the people to fill the thing out so we can find out what the people want from the county as far as park and rec and get a little better grip on what the people are thinking. That was the one thing I wanted to talk about. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was, I was talking to Adam last week about the Grumman boat launch. And he said that you might have to keep that boat launch down for an extended period of time because they can't get the dredging in there until fall. And I went back to my group of people that I talked to, and none of them want to see that happen. They want that thing open this summer. And they said, the feedback I got was, get the thing done as quick as you can and do the dredging in the fall when you take the docks off. That was their feedback that I got from them, and I'm sharing it with you folks. I would hate to see the dredging hold that project up all summer and not be able to use it. So that's the only two reasons I'm here.
Anyone on Zoom?
We do have one on Zoom.
Okay, did you want to, he or she want to speak?
Beth G, if you are interested in speaking, now is the time. If you do want to unmute.
I'm just listening in. Thank you.
5th item, discussion and action, nominate the vice chairman of Parks Committee. And vote, yeah.
I would nominate Steve Bender.
Yeah.
Would you like to, would you take the nomination if I nominated you?
I just got rid of that last time.
You're experienced.
Well, I think nominate. Are you accepting or not accepting? That's the first question.
If somebody else wants it, they're more than welcome to have it. I'm the chairman of the extension committee and. I mean, I'll do it if nobody else wants it, but if anybody else wants it, have at it.
I want it.
Okay.
Yep.
Then I nominate Josh instead.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Any other nominations? Any other nominations for vice chairman? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to declare nominations closed and cast.
So move that. Cast unanimous ballot.
That's where I got it. Yes, that's what I was gonna say, yeah.
I know.
Moved by Supervisor Powers, seconded by
I'll second it.
Supervisor Piner. All in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
All opposed? Josh Belleville is our vice chairman of the Parks Committee. Okay. 6th item, discussion.
You
Changes
forgot
to,
the third item, though. We didn't approve the minutes.
you're right, Supervisor Bender. Approval of December 13th, 2022 minutes.
So.
Second.
Moved by Supervisor Bender, seconded by Supervisor Powers. Any discussion on them? Hearing none, all agree with saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. Now we can go on to item number 6. Discussion and changes to Park and Recreation Ordinance 19.23 camping overnight mooring.
Yeah, just real briefly, so in your packet, I included an exhibit A, which has red. I kept all the edits in there, so it's a little messy. If you see a crossed out item, that means we're proposing eliminating it. If you just see a red typed in item, that means that it's a change or an addition. And then if you see, there's even some comments in there where things are highlighted. We'll walk through this a little bit. I did not ask Chairman Norton to have this on here for any sort of decision today, because as I was working through it, as you can see, it's 3 pages long. It's a little longer than, you know, the fireworks that we had last time. Few sentences, we're going to change a pretty easy comments, a little bit easier one. We can't do much of that anyways. It's more state law. So in this case, I went through, made some, what I would see as edits, a lot of. So just to give a little bit of background on this particular camping ordinance, from my understanding, when this was added, because this isn't actually that old of a section of chapter 19. It was actually added, I want to say 7 or 8 years ago by a previous assistant director, because they were looking to add overnight camping at the expo for just if you have a tent or a camper and you just want to pull up for the night. There, you'll actually notice back by Flyers Field, which is our furthest field, that there's a sign that says overnight camping and has a box. And the idea was you just come up and you pay and you do self-service camping. It never really took off for one reason or another. So just so you're aware, when you see a lot of how this is worded, a lot of it is more not unsupervised, but you know, just more come as you can and stay overnight camping.
When you say camping, do you assume it's overnight? Because you could camp out, like you could have a Girl Scout day camp and they could be there all day long. And you'd call that camping, but not overnight. When you see camping, do you assume it's overnight?
Assuming how the fee is working, like if I showed up today at noon, I'm paying from now until I believe it's 11 a.m. is when the checkout is. So yeah, if you leave at 8 o'clock at night, you don't stay overnight. I mean, it's still the same fee.
Okay.
You're still paying the same price.
So we don't have any day camp prices.
No, I mean, no, nothing for like just the day versus night.
Okay.
Now, no one has really taken advantage of that. Obviously, you know, we really haven't pushed that and I don't necessarily see us promoting that. I mean, not to say we couldn't, and that I'd still leave the language in here so that maybe someday we could, you know, push it a little bit more and do that. But we're looking more at, for instance, Justin is working on for EAA week or sorry, Air Venture week of offering camping, and we want to try it out this next summer. Now, you know, it's just me, Justin and Rick, so we're just gonna try it out and see. We were gonna try it last year. Obviously, our prices were a little lower, and then also just not enough time by the time we came up with the idea. So we want to be able to advertise that this winter. So if this, you know, if we bring this back in January and then February, the county board, that would give us, you know, several months to do that. Then also, you know, we are, like we've talked about, we are working with the PGI is a unique way that we would sell the camping versus them renting and then charging their people for camping. So, you know, we want to be able to have this set up in a more right now or previously, and I apologize, that's the only thing that ended up getting deleted and doesn't show as a line crossed out, is the previous or the current fees are, and actually I have the current code right here, but is $15 per day for camping, which is very low. But if you're talking about self-service, like is what it was, yeah, it was camper fee is $15 per campsite per night with an additional $5 campsite fee applied to any party that fails to pay. So, I mean, but that, how it was currently set up is there's really no staff to do anything, whereas obviously if we're gonna sell it to a group like AirVenture, you know, just we're gonna clean the bathrooms every day, you know, we'll have our staff go over there and clean the bath, you know, stuff like that, the shower building once in the morning, once at night. So
our fees range with AirVenture. Are they
So-
charging the same for a 50 amp service?
So actually, even since I did some of these edits, and that's why I also did one for action today, is actually, so the, I looked at state campgrounds, for instance, like High Cliff, is $40 per day, for instance, or per night. Now, AirVenture, Life Fest, some of those, because Life Fest has theirs published as well, they're more in like 125 per night range. Now I think when you have an established event, or like for instance, AirVenture, you're camping right on the grounds, you don't have to drive anywhere, you know. So there's obviously there's gonna be a little bit more cost there, of course, because you're not driving, you're not parking, or you're paying basically to be on site. So there's a little bit of a premium to that. AirVenture, I did not see what their prices are. I did look at Life Fest because that's obviously equivalent to when they camp on our grounds. So it was about 125 per night is what they charge for our gravel front parking lot area. Obviously, when we look at something like a PGI or an AirVenture, we'd actually be looking at charging for the week Because we just don't have the staff to check people out today, check new people in tomorrow, would be, you just pay for the whole week. You know, if it's $35, or I think actually that should go up a little bit.
Well, that's what I think, I mean, because when you start taking a motorhome with air conditioning.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have to have, you know, showers that they're gonna be using, and we're getting $50 a day, I don't think it's even gonna cover our costs.
Yeah.
Now, when you put the manpower in there and, you know, if like the fare, I think it's fair for, you know, I
Yeah.
mean, $50 a day, but. It's a whole different regime of people, they're not coming with motorhomes with big roof air conditioners and. You know, they're gonna run all day, and even though when they're not in there, they're gonna run that air conditioner because it costs nothing to run it. And we don't have the budget to supplement it, you know, it has to break even.
Right.
Or it's not sustainable for the taxpayers to pay for it.
And our fees for and I can bring the utility fees next month when we bring this back up again too. Because we had that breakdown when we did the utility fee proposal. Our utility fees were roughly around in like the high season of the lots over there with the new electrical. Were about $400 off the top of my head per month. You know, so we break that down per day. Well, really, we can break it down per event because.
Right, we'll get more break it down per Life Fest.
Yep.
Where they for Life Fest, because
Yep. And like,
that's the ones that are using all, like,
Yeah.
when there's not a big event there and there's no electric campers.
Right.
It's gonna be cheap, but when you fill that parking lot up with electric and everybody's running their air conditioners.
Yeah.
You only gotta check it for 1 week, just check it for the week of Life Fest for the 3 days that they were there.
Oh, yeah.
And then divide that into the amount of sites we have, and then we know what we paid for power
Yep.
when they're there, you know.
And we'll bring more market data, definitely. Cause yeah, I agree. I think that price needs to go up. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Not electric.
$5 for 30 amp service, that's pretty cheap, you know, when I know they're gonna run that air conditioner. And then we have to basically provide some type of shower system for them, you know, I mean, they can't come here for a week and not shower.
Right.
you
I know the state campgrounds were 30 amp and they were 40, but once again, I mean, it's a little different. Obviously, it's equivalent in the sense of it's another government entity, it's a 30 amp circuit. It's High Cliff, it's a pretty popular, but it's also not running events and that type of thing. So yeah, it's a little different. I think our price can go up.
Because our staff will probably end up working some overtime.
Yeah.
You know, so we have to cover the overtime out of that, and then we have to cover the electric out of it, and there's a certain amount of maintenance of the grounds.
Yep, absolutely.
And, you know, there's two other things I didn't quite get, like campers is closed to non-camper between 10 and 7, how are we ever gonna monitor that?
Oh, sorry, the what?
It says the campground
Which,
for non-campers is closed between 10 and 7. So like your guests would have to leave because they're not camping there, how would we ever monitor that?
So for instance, like we're looking at like with a PGI type event, we'd have staff, maintenance staff on site for while the event's going on till almost 1 a.m. So we would have people on site to monitor that. Yes, I mean, for, you know, in regards to like air venture and stuff like that, yeah, we might not be on site at all times for that. But if we do receive a complaint, let's just say from another camper, at least now it's listed in there in which we could take action on it. Let's say Justin gets a call that there were people at 1 o'clock that weren't from, you know, that weren't out there. And we'd have an on-call number as well.
Sure.
Which would, again, like you said, that's a staffing thing. So we would definitely, we're pricing accordingly.
I know, like, I got buddies that have campers on permanent sites, and my wife and I go up there, and a lot of times we're there till 1 o'clock.
Sure.
You know, they don't throw us off the grounds. I don't have a camper there
Sure.
at 10 o'clock. Everybody here that's not camping has to leave. I
Yeah.
just, you know, you have guests that are coming to use our facility, but they may have relatives that are living here, and they might be, you know, still sitting around a campfire talking.
Sure.
And, you know, and it's the same with, they can't leave between 11 and 6 in the morning. You know, how do you stop somebody from leaving at 4 o'clock? You know, he hooks his
Right.
truck onto his camper and he drives off. You know.
Most campsites have like a quiet time or like a quiet hours, like we have to turn off your air conditioning, you have to, you know, those types of things. So that way, you know, obviously noise wise. So I think that's, we mirrored that with the noise. So that way, if there was once again a complaint, we could address it. But yeah, all of this is definitely up for discussion.
Yeah, I just think they're hard to monitor. I mean, I don't care if they're in there. I just think they're hard to monitor. I mean, I know. Like for the 4th of July, we'll go to the campsite and there's probably 10 of us that are just friends sitting around, you know, having a drink, and we watch the fireworks, and, you know, 11:30 midnight, we start to leave, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, they rented that site, and, you know, I'm not a camper there, but I'm their guest. And if I want to sleep there, they wouldn't stop me,
Sure.
you know?
So my question is, are these campsites fairly easily accessible, and I'm asking, let's say it's a random Saturday night at 5 or 6 o'clock. And a couple of campers, a couple of vehicles say, hey, let's just go in the Winnebago County campsite, could they just pull in there, camp overnight, and who would be able to monitor and charge them if and anything? That's my question, if that's possible.
So we're proposing that all of these go to pre-reservations. So basically this, or how it was written is no reservations, actually, you show up. Whereas we want to actually switch that around because we want to be able to, because if we have a horse show over there, someone can't just come up and pull up and, because someone has rented the facility, so it needs to be a pre-registration. Obviously, if we had an issue where someone was in there plugged in, I know actually that happened, that they weren't plugged in. But someone was parked in the campsite, I knocked on their door and explained to them, you can't, they were just resting, so it was, we talked about it. But obviously you can't be staying here, permanently or anything, someone's renting this facility.
And obviously, we have people there every weekend.
Right,
Well, there's gonna be a
weekends.
weekend, I'm saying it could be during the weekdays, somebody's gonna pull over 7 o'clock at night, oh, let's pull over overnight, no one's gonna catch me.
No.
And that's what I'm, okay, all right.
And that's typical to have reservations at campgrounds.
correct,
Most people are doing it online now, right?
right. You have your really popular campgrounds, even with, not as much in Wisconsin, but you do have your really popular campgrounds, like when you go to national parks and stuff where it's first come, first serve, or they keep a section that's first come, first serve. Obviously, we're not a sought after national park setting. But yeah, so yeah, typically that's the most common practice anyway. I don't know if there's anything else, I'm just kind of scrolling through here, because obviously that's why I wanted to include it ahead of time, but obviously we got rid of some firewood type regulations that were pertaining to Emerald Ash Borer. That was always evolving and changing, so I think in general, it's just good to say whatever current Wisconsin regulations are with firewood. Right now, there is no quarantine, it's quarantine within Wisconsin. So, they would just be following whatever Wisconsin's current quarantine is, and we could obviously then we keep up with that type of stuff, because that's just
So
our,
let's say a group, a camper is part of a group. I'll give, like, it's a monk festival, anyone.
Mhm.
And let's say they have campers, but that they don't charge camping or have camping as one of the entities. That camper would have to contact your office online or in person or somehow and reserve it before they can go and camp that night, am I correct?
correct.
Okay.
And we don't plan to do that on like a one camper here and there basis. We plan to do this only for events. We met with rugby, and whether or not they take advantage of this, but they've talked about too, how they have a lot of people that ask, oh, where can we camp? And they camp at another campsite, and well, what if we opened it up for maybe it's called Pig Fest, one of the big festivals they have. Maybe we open up for something like, maybe we open up for Monk Fest. Now, obviously, it just also depends what else is going on at the expo at the time. So do we have room to be able to do it? So that's why it's gonna be more event based than just one or two campers here and there.
How about if they asked you? Well, the rugby or anyone said, well, instead of camping over there, could we have a few camping areas within the park? Would you allow that, or is that totally?
Right now, there's no camping allowed in the community park.
There's no facility really for it.
Right, there's no
place to put showers and
We wouldn't know where to put it.
gray water and,
Right.
you have to have a place to dump all that, and we don't have anything there, so.
Right, it would be tent only. We'd
You'd have to
we
have
want
it.
a
I'm just
designated
asking,
spot too. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, they could basically rent over there and drive their car over it, they wouldn't have to go home at night if they lived a long ways away, or stay in a hotel.
that's what happens with like a pig fest, for instance, exactly. Yeah.
Any other
Quick question,
Quick.
do we sell the firewood?
We do sell some firewood to like
because
Light Fest.
All
because
the
we do have
trees are
some
knocking down.
Yeah, we sell some, we don't, they're. Yeah, we sell a little bit, but it's just Life Fest that we've done any of that with. So just because it is labor intensive too, so it's the cost versus, you sell a bundle for $4 and are you really getting your labor costs back?
And how does
Yes,
that
we do have a lot
actually-
of wood.
How does that actually work now? Cause the city's got a burning pit permit. Like in my yard, I have to have a $30 permit to have a fire in my backyard. That's in the city. So how can we legally even have a fire pit out there when the city requires a $30 permit?
Yeah, we'll take a look at that, actually.
They just did start that last year.
Okay,
But they have a $30 fee, and if I just start up like a little fire in my backyard, and I don't have that permit, and some neighbor calls, they'll come over and I put my fire out until I pay
is that a year,
$30.
is that a yearly?
Yeah.
It's a yearly fee of $30.
Yeah, we'll.
Those
start
round
seeing
things that
that.
people have in their backyards, Had to have a permit for that?
Permit now in the city of Oshkosh.
Oh, okay.
Because how we have it written in here is like a raised, obviously, so you're not burning any of the grass and that kind of stuff. So, yeah. We'll look at that. Well, yeah.
I don't know how that would
appreciate
work, if the city would exempt us from it because we're a
Right.
campground.
Not sure.
What if,
Yeah, right, might, but yeah, I'll take a look at that.
would you, probably not, what if we took out the fire permit and the event, used our fire permit? Probably not, because what happens if something happens to that fire, right?
Right, I'm not sure. There might be more something like around, like kind of what Supervisor Bender's talking about, where there's potential, depending on the type of business you have, you might be able to. So yeah, I'll look at that though. I'll get the answer for next month.
Well, if the city were to let us have a fire permit that lasted for a year, you see that like $30?
It's per house. So I don't know, if it'd be $30 per campsite.
There might be a
No.
business price too,
Like
like for instance,
$100.
we pay the county, actually for the health department, for instance, for camping. Like you have to have a camping permit to allow people to camp on your property. It'd probably be similar to something like that, to any other, we get permits through ourselves.
Okay, so we would need one for shelter one, shelter 1, shelter 2, shelter 3.
No,
shelter-
those don't have fires at them, or camp, those don't have fire pits at them.
Don't people bring those with them sometimes, make their own fires?
Well, maybe a grill, but they don't. bring
Yeah,
actually-
more of a grill.
Real,
Not a fire pit where they,
yeah, okay. And there's no charge for having a grill? Okay.
You're talking the fire pits. Some of them are raised up.
right, any type of
Why-
fire in your backyard.
Why don't we just wait till he looks it up and then we'll talk about it? That'd probably be the best, because once he looks into it, then we'll
Well,
know.
we don't talk about it now, Josh, when are we gonna talk about it? He
Well-
wouldn't know about it, right?
Well, no,
If you're that busy, then maybe you shouldn't be on here. We'll talk about what we need to
no,
talk
no,
about.
no. I'm just saying, right now, he's saying that he's gonna look into it.
That's right, and he's going to look into it. But if we wouldn't have brought it up, he wouldn't know that, would he?
Well, I know, I guess I don't know what more you need to add, though.
He had a question. We're all entitled to ask questions, just like you're entitled to ask now.
Wait, that's.
Yeah, just hold on, calm down a little bit, that's okay.
Oh, I can sit here like this, yeah, calm down, Josh. Just take it easy.
Steve, these are good questions. Adam.
Josh, the other one.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, Adam said he would look into it, and I think he'll do a
And,
great
and
job.
Jim had a question, Supervisor. So what's the difference? Let him ask his question.
The reason of my question is, if every camper has to pay an additional $30, we're out of luck, so we'll wait and see what happens.
Anything else on this
Does the
matter?
county park in the city?
$30 per house.
Okay, anything else?
But it's the county
Okay,
park.
move on to item 7, discussion and action, walk call, dam, capital project 2023 to 2024. Adam.
All right, so just, we added this actually, because last week Monday, I found out that, the county executive was gonna recommend this in the, 2023 to 2028 capital improvement plan, sorry, 5-year, the 5-year plan. So 2023, this would be our project for next year. Obviously, we do have the Grumman, bolt landing, but that was approved, this last year. And that's a 2-year project. So we had engineering this year and then we have construction next year. This is, I know we've talked about this quite a bit at this committee, but I wanted to bring it up one more time, obviously, for any final questions before it goes. So, the proposals that this, parks will be on the special, meeting agenda for next week, to present the Walkaw Dam. So I'm going to bring the video that I've shown on this committee quite often of the washout, so that way. For, potential board members that haven't been out to Walkaw Dam before, seeing, the damage out there, that they can see that. I'm gonna scroll down to, as a reminder, we did the hydraulics report, so I'm gonna go in a little bit more in depth to the county board, because obviously a lot of you've been part of this a little bit more as we've talked about this. I know we had this on the agenda in November, and then we talked about it this summer when we adopted it. So I know I won't re-go over the hydraulics. I know I filled in Josh as well, as a new committee member on what's going on at the Walkaw Dam. So as a reminder, I will kind of scroll down more to the site layout and the estimate, to kind of refresh everyone what the proposal is to the county board. And this one zoomed in. Okay, so zoom out just a little bit. Perfect. Or maybe that's a little too much. Oh, well, you can see a little bigger on the screen. But so basically Walcott M, remember, one of the big reasons that this project was brought forth, and this project's been going on, actually, I'll give you even a little bit more background to the county board. Because it's really been going on since about 2020. And really, we've had maintenance issues even before that. And actually, before my time, the previous, or the parks manager, Tom, he even put together a report. They worked with Rutler a little bit, with MSA, who did this plan, the engineering firm, on that there's an issue out here. And then that's when we went into we requested the hydraulic analysis to be done to figure out how can we address this issue. And as a reminder, it's this embankment on this side of the property, where this green and gray is, that we're having the most issues. So what ends up happening is, when we have, I want to say heavy rainfalls, but it's even, I want to make sure that everyone understands, it's not even the heaviest of rainfalls, it's even sometimes a 2-inch type event. What's end up happening is, the water's washing over the embankment. It's creating some large erosion issues, and we're having to multiple times a year go out here and fix these erosion issues. If we don't fix it and we let the erosion continue, we could essentially wash out the embankment completely and lose the pond. So basically, the main piece of this project, or the main purpose of this project, was this area to do more of a geogrid here in the green area. And that's more of like a plastic type geogrid. You can plant grass in that, but it holds in the soil better. And then this gray area here is what we've talked about with that Armor Flex, flexible concrete that
Right.
once again, some grass can grow through. So it's not going to just look like this big concrete blob, it'll eventually grow in a little bit. So it'll it won't look so, stark contrast. This will be lower, so that way when the pond does need to spill over, it has the opportunity to spill over into the creek. But it's going to be spilling over the concrete or over the geogrid, which is going to hold in the embankment. We also propose to do some, actually, you can see this gray here is riprap, which is large stone. That's put in along an embankment to help hold in the embankment. We have a lot of washout here, for instance, in this area, and actually some Armor Flex is proposed here too, because we have quite a bit of, that's where we walked over that bar dam, and basically you would have dropped off 3 or 4 feet
Right.
if you didn't know. That's also the main access point. And this is something that's come up within the last year. So this is the brown is the reminder, is all the single track bike trail. And if we go out here to Highway 116, there is right around here in this area, there is, and actually I think it might even be right here. Basically, the state is having issues because this is a state highway where the bikers are parking down here at the parking lot. They're biking up here, and instead of going all the way up to K, like they're supposed to their trailhead, they're just biking in right here. And they're causing erosion along the roadway, which is gonna eventually affect the roadway and the safety issues they have there. So we received a complaint on that last year, and then we received another complaint just a month ago from the DOT that's happening again. So we did reach out to the group that is helping maintain the single bike trail. We asked them to move a few things down here. We put up some caution tape in the meantime, and we're going to try to put a more permanent structure there. I mean, harder to barricade or a concrete block, so that way we inform the users, because we understand it's a volunteer group. They can't inform everyone. They can post it on Facebook and that type of thing, but not everyone's going to see everything. So try to get the word out there. But the point is with this project, we're also going to create a parking lot up here on Highway K. So they finally have the trailhead. This is a very popular trail. And it's a great amenity, but they need a spot to access the trail. So on that, you can see there's also site lighting. And then the parking lot was chip sealed this last year. But chip sealing is usually meant as a prolonging a pavement. It's not meant to, fix it. Usually have chip seals 6-7 years until, before it's supposed to be repaved. So we're gonna redo the parking lot, add site lighting, add a small shelter. Remember, we did, it doesn't have to be this. I know we talked about that in the summer. It doesn't have to be that shape. We go through that design process. And then what's important too is we would be fixing those catwalks that go over the dam so they're accessible. We create a concrete approach so that way a wheelchair, or it's more basically it's ADA accessible. We'd also redo all the railings on it and redo the grading and make sure that they're more suitable for walking across. Lastly, we would be adding, right now we have this dock, so we would need to fix that dock up a little bit, but then we would be proposing to add these 2 docks. So, and then we just work up the trail. The trail's in pretty good shape in general, but while we're out there, we just regrade it, make sure it's good to go, make sure it's sheeting correctly, and do a complete project. So our proposal is for 2023 is for the engineering at 230,000. And then, and that would be what we would do, is we would set it up very similar to Grumman. We would only do as much engineering as needed. So there is a potential grant. I know we got a grant for the Grumman boat landing. This grant is much more competitive. It's called the Wisconsin DNR Stewardship Grant. It's the money that the state fund or provides for grant opportunities to all parks. That's state parks, county parks, and municipal parks. So, local parks, City of Oshkosh, their park system. You could apply for it for a shelter. I mean, honestly, obviously, the more unique projects do score a little better. If it has to do with a dam, has to do with water, has to do with fishing. So I think we'll have a good score. However, I just want to emphasize, and I will remind the board this as well. So we did budget, hopefully, to get 50% of the construction costs through this grant, which is roughly $750,000. But so we can apply for that May 1st. So we want to get.
The grant's still in process. We haven't got it yet.
No.
Okay.
So applications are due every year. The
Okay.
yearly grant, they're due May 1st.
Okay,
So we'll be in a time crunch, but if things are approved in February, kind of like Grumman, if we're ready to go with an
Yeah.
engineer, we can get the initial. Honestly, I could even apply for the grant for the most part with what we have. But we just need to narrow it down a little bit more to make sure we were, re-up the costs, do a little bit more,
if
general.
we have these things locked in February, how much difference will the cost be inflated by the time we submit it in May? And there's some sort of period of time before it's granted, what's the difference in? I mean, I'm asking you to read a crystal ball, I guess. but-
Right, I mean, we need the approved funding for the engineering, so I honestly. Yeah, from a construction standpoint, it just like Grumman, where it did fluctuate a little bit. That's why we do, just to kind of highlight here in the estimate, that is why we do building contingency and they're usually higher contingencies
Okay.
in this type of estimate. Because we're not, once we have more detailed designs and we go to bid, now our contingency should be more like 10%.
Okay,
But we're about 20% now because exactly that, by the time this is constructed in 2024. That's why we need to make sure that we add that contingency. So the grant are due on May 1st. And then we would hold off on any other engineering, until we hear back. Usually this grant. When I received a grant last time, it was about October, end of September, usually when we find out. So it's gonna be a waiting game, just like we did with the Grumman boat landing. And then on September, once we find out if we receive funding and how much funding, then that's when, if we need to go back to the board for additional funding. So I will be 100% straightforward and transparent with the board to make sure they understand that the grant isn't acquired yet, it's not guaranteed, but we are gonna apply for it.
Jim?
I just had one thing to ask Adam, because I wasn't paying attention, but I wasn't.
Yep.
Go back to the map. Well, you don't even have to go back to the map. When they were going from the one parking lot and then they were kind of trumps and they were going down 116, I believe it was, and then they were cut into the trails.
Yeah.
And you said the concern was that they were like wearing a path or whatever.
Mhm.
Was the concern more about them being on 116 going in? Because
Yes, it was.
that was the concern.
It was the shoulder is eroding because of the tracks from the bikes. And they, that's obviously gonna eventually undermine the road and safety, obviously they need that shoulder for safety. So, yes.
I thought it was a ditch and they were, okay, good enough.
Steve?
When they came to us originally, they were supposed to use the parking lot on K. They weren't supposed to go through that.
And that's the problem is the parking lot on K has, it's
It has minimal,
undeveloped.
it's not
wet.
actually a parking lot. It
Right,
never was, but that's
Right.
where they were supposed to go in. And that's what they were supposed to use. And that dam, we cannot raise the water on that dam.
right,
So we're not gonna gain nothing there. The dams are in good shape. We're just gonna basically push the water over into the other
yeah,
channel to get it out of there,
yeah,
because that's all a wetland, and basically the DNR won't let you, if that was a actual dam, you could raise the the dam and hold the water back, but then all that natural habitat would flood and all the
Right.
wildlife would die. So they won't let us raise that. But that Oshkosh Bike Club is supposed to basically use a K not.
Right. Yep,
That
that's what
was
I've
part
heard
of the
too.
agreement in the original, when we drew it up.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure if we have an official agreement with them currently, because I haven't been able to find anything. So, but I've been trying to reach out actually ever since, it was a week and a half ago, I found the contact and I just, every time it's a busy signal, so we're gonna go back to the bike shop and figure out what the actual
So
number
you'll
is.
get one soon?
Was that?
You'll get one soon
Get one.
with the bike?
Oh, yeah, because I wanna connect with them and I wanna let them know what we're planning on doing out there too, so they.
Making a bike, repair, or whatever, I mean, we're benefiting them.
Oh, sure, we might be able to do a donation,
They have a stake in this, including.
absolutely.
Josh, you have? So, Karen, any more?
No,
So when would this get done in 2024 approximately if everything went right?
So I don't think, I have to see if the Walker Creek is subject to, so, and I'll talk about it in my update, but part of the reason the dredging can only take place at certain times is you can only do work in the water during certain times of the year. Due to fish spawning. I'm not sure if Walker Creek falls into those same criteria with the DNR. But we'll do some more investigation into that. If that's the case, the earliest is gonna be spring of 2024. Because we would go to bid, basically we'd get everything done next year like we do with Grumman to go to bid and open bids in January like we're gonna do with Grumman. And then construction would just be based off of whatever permits the DNR, when they allow us to do certain work.
We did put big riprap by that walking bridge and then all washed away.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if that's gonna be the solution of anything or if the same, because we're gonna divert the water down further than that. So all that riprap might,
So where you're talking about, I think, is right here on this dam, and some of that's the armor flux now, is what we're proposing, because exactly. And then an engine, so we put it in ourselves, we did the best we could to try to engineer it. We probably used too small riprap, not knowing how significant the flooding issues were.
you had like
You'd have
8
these
or
bigger-
10-inch breaker run. It was a good
Right.
sized stone.
Right, so you would have
Yeah.
thought we would have put in a big enough, exactly. I mean, they're big stones, exactly. So I mean, nothing against our staff. We tried to put what we thought would work, and yeah.
The
'Cause
whole
I think
thing
highway
washed out
helped
of
with
there.
that too.
And I think the highway department actually put that in there.
Yes,
And it lasted for one of the major storms and all of it was gone.
and that is why we're suggesting armor flex, something so, actually the armor flex picture's right here, something so.
Well, that's like a paver pushed in the side.
right.
Yeah, so that's why we're going, that's why we're going with some, think of, so, and I know this isn't quite in our area, but when Lake Delton, it was a pretty big deal in Wisconsin when Lake Delton flowed over. They've used a lot of this to try to help with that solution as well.
That armor flex, is it just a flat piece or does it have like something coming in the back that pushes it into the side of the,
So you take
Yeah.
out the embankment essentially, and you can kind of see like how there's gaps in between each, because
Yeah.
there's a netting that basically, I mean, a strong net, but it basically attaches all of it, but it allows it to still be flexible. So, because obviously you're working in nature, you're working in embankments and hills, and you need it.
but there's nothing going from in the back that kind of attaches it so that.
No,
It looks, the way it looks now, it's just sort of like flat there.
Yep.
What keeps it from tipping over, like washing away, tipping over?
very heavy.
Oh,
Because you
okay.
figure this is all concrete, they're all linked together, so one can't move without the other one's moving.
They are
and
linked
you figure
together,
We're doing,
okay.
I mean, we're doing, in some cases, here, we're doing. Almost, we're probably 75 feet plus, another 75 by 50.
Okay.
Or 75 by 40 feet, that's gonna be heavy, it's
Okay.
a lot of weight, it won't wash out.
Move on to item A, discussion and possible action, Dr. Shelter fee discussion, Adam, and provide us with a Steve.
Wait a minute, do we need any action on number 7? It says
Yeah.
discussion and action. Do we need to take action?
Well, so I don't have a resolution or anything, so I don't really know if, that's a good question, I mean, I guess there could have been a resolution just to
Well, let me,
acknowledge the agreement from the Parks Committee,
this
but.
is what I'm thinking, and I'm chairman, and I can overrule. This isn't gonna come up for vote to the county board until February,
Till
correct?
February, yeah, P and F first and
So
then county board.
we can. We supported this all along, right? We already supported it.
Yeah,
do we really need, I mean, other than getting Josh's vote on it, do we really need to do it? If we have to, we can do it at January meeting.
I mean, and the resolution would just be something to go to PNF. I mean, we could always add it to January. We can talk about that, and add it to January.
That's
meeting,
my
potentially.
only
Some
thing. I don't wanna-
Formal, if we want to.
help, but that's my.
I'm in favor, if that's what you need to
Okay.
do. I'm very much in favor of this.
Not to be run down.
No, that makes a lot of, I agree. I understand what you're trying to get at. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Okay, so now we'll go on to item 8 and, you know,
All right, and I apologize, I did not have it in the packet because it's been a busy month with, usually December is the catch-up month, but it's been a busy month just staying afloat. So I, handed out, data, basically what similar what we want to do with the camping data, for next month. For soccer shelter rental, I know Supervisor Binder brought this, and I agree. And I think we potentially want to look at some changes to our shelters across the board, honestly, and how things are set up. So I wanted to kind of give a picture of how things, so I'll just, on the top portion, and actually, let me just, I think this for anyone who is online. And so also for the Zoom record, I'm gonna switch my screen real quick, apologize. There, we go, just so everyone can see what we're talking about.
Okay.
Perfect. Back up just a little bit. Okay, that's close enough so that we can still read it. So the top, basically I looked at other similar shelters, basically a shelter that has a bathroom, has a kitchen or kitchenette type, setup, like for instance, ours doesn't have a stove. A lot of these shelters I looked at have a stove, not that we couldn't add a residential stove, but ours currently does not. It also has typically an overhang that connects, so if you've been to the soccer shelter, it's the bathroom and indoor kitchen portion, and then basically the shelter is attached, the outdoor portion is attached with picnic tables underneath it.
Right.
So I looked for similar shelters of that type. So looking at, and now keep in mind, and that's why I'll walk through this a little bit, is everyone prices their shelters and some of their fees a little differently. So I'll just walk through it first here. You can kind of see, I was able to get a Little Chute, Oshkosh, Outagamie County, Neenah, Menasha, Fox Crossing, Kimberly, and Appleton that have equivalent or similar shelters. You'll see that most of them have a resident and non-resident price. We don't do that, and not necessarily advocating for that, because you'll see Outagamie County is the one that doesn't, and it is a little bit more difficult because if you do resident versus non-resident, for instance, when Justin takes reservation, he would need to check in the tax roll to make sure that they're a resident versus non-resident. A lot of times when you're in a county, how many people are probably renting our shelter at the most here in Oshkosh from outside the county. So how much would we really make off of non-residents? I'm not saying it's something we could look at, but our current structure for our other shelters does not have that, just so you are aware.
Is the reason why the other places have a resident for non-resident, I mean, basically because the non-residents don't live in that area and.
Yep.
I mean,
There's a little bit of a the taxpayer, I'm somewhat supplementing other people renting, it's kind of the thought process of getting
I
a
mean,
discount.
I hear that, but could any group get around that? All I need is one person who.
Right, they have to be the responsible party, they have to be the one to pay the bill. So like, let's just say Steve has family coming in, but he's not the one running the event, but they know he lives in Oshkosh. So they use him to sign up for it, and then they trash the shelter, or whatnot. We would be saying, Steve, you owe us, or it would be Steve's responsibility that it was left the way it was. So yeah, no, you're correct, though. I mean, and to answer that, simply because I worked for a city or municipality typically, or village before this position, is a lot of times you would have a lot of non-residents rent our shelters. And they're not taxpayers, so the idea was that there was, they're paying taxes and they get a little discount on the shelter, typically.
I'm just curious how many people from. Fond du Lac, Appleton, whatever, come to our parties or who aren't part of another group. Who aren't part of a group that doesn't have someone already in this county, that's my question about that, okay.
So there's a lot of them started resident and non-resident. You can see at the bottom, I did an average. So the average of this shelter type is 95.63. The average for non-residents 129.29. And then I just want to go over a few other little details here. this is just more or less so I remember what park those shelters were at if I have to go back. But you'll see some notes here and that pertains to the particular park. Oshkosh does have a weekday versus weekend price. We do as well. Just so you're aware, for any of these prices, I automatically did the weekend price, so the higher price. So that way you're looking at all the highest prices for these shelters. Out of Gamey County offers a partial day. That's tough for us because you would have to clean midday, basically the next rental that comes in. City of Neenah, same thing, weekday, weekend prices. And then City of Menasha and Village of Fox Crossing do it based off a number, which we do as well. What I will just, I mean, I won't go through each one of these necessarily, but what you'll see is we have up to 150, 151 to 300, 301 to 1,000, over 1,000. Why put in parentheses 50 and 51 to 300 is because shelters 3 and 4 are smaller octagon shelters. They're smaller. They actually have a different like up to 50 people instead of up to 150 people, and 51 to 300. But then once we get to 301 and 1,000, they stay the same. Now, what I will say to this, and Justin's the one who takes most of the shelter rentals, is 1 or 2 a year actually say that they're, this kind of goes back to our conversation on camping. How is this monitored?
That's my
And 1 or 2 people a year actually tell us that they're over it, other than our special events. Our special events, we know our special events are a little different. We don't, charge much for the special event itself. So that's kind of somewhat our way, of recouping some cost from a special event.
I missed that
But-
one comment. 1 or 2
Yeah.
people a year tell you that something's over it, did you say?
Yeah, 1 or 2 people a year will say we're at 151 or 300 to 300 people, And we always ask them, how many
Okay.
people do you expect to have?
Okay,
Now, I will also say, if you're at shelter 1 and you have 300 people there, I don't know where you're putting all those people, even 150 people, I don't know where you're putting all those
That's
people.
after they put in and they paid for the 50 or lowest amount, and they said double or triple that. That's what.
No, so they're like, when they rented from Justin, they said, Justin asks, how many people are you gonna have there? They actually tell us, we're gonna probably have 300 people here.
See, I'm curious the other way, but it said, what if, I'll be quite honest, I'd say, okay, I'll pay the $50 or $60 fee for the one up to 150, but if I get 200 people, I ain't gonna monitor it, and who monitors that? That's,
Right.
I know there's 150 and 1,000, I know that, but that's why the numbers, I know why we have it, but I just, are you splitting hairs? And how many people, groups really go over it? That's my question.
So we would propose as staff, when we bring this back in January, we would propose to get rid of the number of people, have a special event fee and just a normal shelter fee.
Well,
Because it just makes it more confusing. And then we bring back market rates for shelters 1, 2, 3, and 4 as well.
it's one thing to say, if I call up Justin and say, I have a event in my group, and I think Justin asked me, how many people you expect? Oh, I expect 200 people, and he can give them the larger shelter and accordingly, but
Mhm.
like my concern is, I'll just tell you 50 for shelter 1, and if 400 people show up, 400 people show up. And maybe purposely I say that, just so I don't have to pay the $30 or, well, 400 people. I don't have to pay the extra $9. I mean, that's
Right.
what I would prefer.
And that's what we've been noticing. And then lastly, what you'll just notice, last thing I'll point out is obviously the reason why we brought this data up is the soccer shelter. You'll see that even if we go to up to the 150, the lowest amount. Right now, we are at $200 and $225, depending on weekday versus weekend. And like I said, if you look up here, these are all the highest amounts. Now granted, resident versus non-resident. So if we want to look at non-resident, it's $129.29, which is about $100 more than the market rate for that type of shelter. It's a brand new shelter. It shouldn't be on the, I don't think we should be charging $60 like Oshkosh does. I mean, if I'm gonna be honest. But I also agree with Supervisor Binder, that $225 or $200, in my opinion, is too much. But that's,
Especially if we don't know what they're gonna use it for. If they tell Justin, if you're using everything that facility has, the kitchen, everything, maybe 220 or 225 is a little more justified, but if you just need a meeting place, a big meeting place, maybe it's not so much.
But keep in mind, even these, all of these shelters that are up there that anyone can go rent, I mean, anyone can go rent some in Oshkosh, and we're in Oshkosh. For $150 less, and they have a kitchen.
And they're brand new. They
Yeah.
just built them within the last
Right.
2 years.
And I don't know what's in it. Some of them are a little
Some
smaller
are
than others, but
little, but-
still, I mean, $60 versus $225 is a big difference.
And why I brought this up is this shelter only rented out about twice all. last couple-
Outside of special events, yes.
Yeah, and the biggest thing is, I don't know how many people you let use the bathroom. But most of the time we lock the bathrooms out because the lift station can't handle the usage. So, you know, if they have. Probably over 300 people, we lock the bathrooms. You
If
know,
they had a large event,
large, yeah, I mean, like for soccer Saturday, for the Hmong festival, they don't use the bathroom, we lock them out because the lift station can't. So they're paying for a facility for 1,000 people that really all they're using is the kitchen and the picnic tables. Because they're not using the bathrooms because they have to bring porta potties in because we can't supply that. So it's like, all I want to do is we paid $349,000 to build that. I would like to see us. The citizens use it
Yeah.
all summer rather than basically 2 events for the whole summer, other than soccer Saturday and the.
And just, you know, the bathrooms are typically open, just because of soccer out there. So we usually leave it open because of soccer, the bathrooms.
Jim? you have something?
They have automatic locks.
My question wasn't, you guys just about had it and then you let it right through your fingers. How many times are these shelters not being used? You got data on that? You know, are they used every weekend?
Now,
And when I rent a shelter, I kind of I'd rather underestimate, overestimate how many than underestimate. So, you know, somebody's saying, I'm gonna save $10. I don't believe that too many people will be that way. Do we have enough usage?
So we can put together a report because of rec desk. I do, the soccer shelter specifically is very minimal. That I can say with confidence. The other shelters do get used, and we could bring that usage data next meeting.
I think the pavilion was almost rented out every weekend,
Yeah.
because if you look on the calendar,
I'm trusting on
yeah,
it.
it lists the ones that are rented, and I think the pavilion was rented out just about every weekend. But it's the nicest shelter we have. It's got a whole indoor where if it's raining, you can bring the people, if it's a little cooler, it's got heat in it. It's got a kitchen, it's got running water.
Do my best to pull the calendar. I guess.
I know I've been on a couple of different things and they rented a shelter and they were nice. Unless it's raining. And I don't care. You ain't gonna get a lot of people underneath when it rains.
So this is June and July. I said June and July because this is the tail end of June. And you can see quite a few soccer party, graduation party, you know, and these are shelter, you can see how it's labeled 3, 4, 2, and pavilion. So for instance, this Sunday, only shelter 1 wasn't being rented. And even the weekdays, you can see shelter 1, shelter 1, shelter 1, shelter 3, shelter 4. And this is all of July. So all this green is rented for rentals. Now, what you'll see is there's not a lot of soccer shelter. And most of the soccer shelter reserves are for special events. So just to kind of give you a picture, yes, we do have lots of rentals on the weekends. Many.
Well, I see that on the weekends, on the weekdays you don't, but they're not
Right.
sitting empty then.
No, and even on the weekdays, you can see a handful here and there for sure,
I'll
actually.
touch on that, Jim, the one event I had to put together, I barely got in shelter 4 or, I mean, I asked Justin, and they're all reserved, and I know I called. Oshkosh the same weekend, everyone, their major parks, South Park, Menominee Park, they're all booked, so. You know, tell you, come January, if you have an event, you better plan it fairly quick. Come February, you may, your choices are very slim. I mean, you might have to wait till after August, that even then to have it, so yeah.
So then does it justify lowering it or raising it if we're all booked up?
So the typical shelters 1 through 4 in the pavilion are the ones that are definitely being rented. The soccer shelter is not being rented. What I propose, and the reason why, at least I didn't suggest to have a decision today, is that if we change the soccer shelter, maybe we should look at all of them. Now, I know rentals already have started in January, and that's okay. I mean, once we get it all changed in February, it'll just take effect for any new reservations, and there's got to be a time at some point that it's changed. So, my proposal would be for us to come back also with some comparable numbers for you for the types of shelters that shelter 1, 2, and 3, 4 and pavilion are.
Okay, because 1, 2, 3, and 4, apparently you have no problem renting them out.
Yep.
At least from what I'm seeing. If, the soccer ones, you're having a problem. Is it the problem that who's ever hosting whatever event, they don't have enough people to justify renting that shelter?
I think it's a combination. I think it's, and I don't have any data to back this up, but I think price is a factor. And I also think the amount of soccer events is a factor, because we do have to block it out some weekends. We're not gonna have it as rentable when we have, even if it's not a tournament, but if we have 10 soccer games going on out there. Now all of a sudden you show up for your cookout with 100 people and the parking lot's full and there's soccer games everywhere.
I don't even
Right
have
next
100
to you.
people that I know.
Well, but basically, yeah, so.
Josh?
As of right now, what would you suggest for a price for the shelter? And the soccer shelter, and maybe Steve, even you can too, or what you think?
So,
I personally think if it was the same as the pavilion, we paid $349,000 for that building, and when I never see it being used, it's like, what a waste of money. And the reason they don't use it is because you look at the highest one in the whole Fox Valley is $150, and we're charging $225, $75 more. You're not gonna rent something when you're charging $75 more than, and why do we build it if we ain't gonna, we're never gonna use it? It just,
And Adam, what do you think?
I mean, my proposal would be, so our average is 95, my proposal would be somewhere between $100 and $120, which is what the pavilion is on a weekday right now.
And then, sorry, what
But
about?
it's not heated, there's a little, whereas the pavilion does have the full. Pavilion's covered, has the full kitchen, bathrooms inside of it, can be heated, so it's a little nicer, but at the same time, it's all a much older building, so. Whereas you have a much newer building, aesthetically pleasing building with the new shelter.
And then would you put up the other shelter, the prices on those other shelters too?
I want to look at comparables, but I have a feeling they can, even if it's a $5 bump, just to keep up with market, I think even just a modest increase would be appropriate.
Okay,
My last question, and we can wait till we come back to this next month and maybe Jessica can answer this. I mean, do we market this? How do we market? I mean, if we're gonna lower the soccer shelter and do what Steve wants to do, how do we market it out, get it out to groups that we have this pretty much brand new facility, kitchen facility? Here, we have this. And we can use it, you can use it now. I mean, that's my concern. I mean, they all know about the other shelters because they've been here for years, but if we're trying to lower the price to use that shelter, we have to get somehow, how do we get that word out to people? And I know I could say, someone calls up and asks Justin, hey, we have a further big group, I don't know, and Justin gets information, oh, but soccer shelter, that's one way, but is that the best? So that's when, I guess I'd like to see how our marketing and our strategy, how to get what Steve wants to do. If there's no good, there's some good, not a lot of good, just to lower the price, if no one knows about it, no one's gonna reserve more. That's my only closing thought.
just one more thing I'll add to that, Mike, is last year I brought that up, and about August, we finally put the price on the website. But the soccer shelter was called for pricing and availability. Now it's on there, the same as the rest of them. So like when you were looking for your shelter, you wouldn't even know what the price of the soccer shelter was. But now if the price of that soccer shelter was $90 and you could see that and it was available, you probably would have rented that versus that shelter you had that had 4 posts and a roof and nothing else. You had basically a roof over where you could get maybe 25 people under it. It was the worst shelter in County Park. For a few dollars more, you could have one of the best shelters in County Park, but it wasn't available because anybody that was looking online couldn't see it. Now it's available online, like when they come out January 1st, and if we won't adjust the price till in January, it goes to the county board in February. But it will be there for $90 or $95, and I can just about guarantee you that it will rent the same as the pavilion because it's the second best shelter we have. So I would think, that's why we built it. I'm not about making money on it. I'm just about people using it. Because that's why we built the shelter, was for the citizens to use.
And we might still have to do the call for availability, and we'll have to work through that only because of all the events that use it and all the soccer, soccer clubs that are out there. And making sure that they have a good experience, but we'll continue to work through that. And, there's some weeks where we can definitely leave it wide, the fall, for instance, September's a little easier to just say, yep, it's open. You can register online, but there's gonna be certain times that we'll still probably say you have to call in just to make sure.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. Item number 9, discussion, possible action, tables and chairs, budget amendments, Centerview expedition.
Yes, so I apologize. This is actually my mistake. We approved this in the
Yeah.
last meeting in November. Yep, and with vacation and holidays, that's why I'm saying it's completely 100% my mistake, is PNF was that same week. And I apologize. Normally, I'm used to it being the week after. I was ready to send it to PNF only. Oh, right, PNF is 2 days from now. So unfortunately, I could not get it added to the PNF agenda. I talked to Administrator Collard, because the finance director is still, it was just getting onboarded at that time. He said the best route forward, because we're still making revenue and we're still hosting the testing clinics, and we still have the need for tables and chairs. And we're still gonna be making revenue next year, is to request, so the amount was, so we'll knock off 2 or 3 chairs. And to request 15,000, and request it from the contingency fund, and then have it go to PNF in January, and then we can get them ordered right in January. So yes, that is my fault. I apologize that this is on here again. So it's a similar request. We're probably just gonna take 1 or 2 chairs off, to be within the spending limit, available, and order the chairs immediately. Next PNF is January, well, next week. So it's the same request, it's the same quote with the vendor.
There's no action that has to be taken.
No, we would want action for, I did have, I do have a resolution. I didn't have a resolution in there, I just have the budget, so a budget amendment, so we would just need the committee vote, and I have it here, if it doesn't get passed for you to sign, then that would go to the PNF committee next week. This would not go to the county board, because it's coming from the contingency fund.
Oh,
And the 15,000.
That's one less discussion.
no.
Just gets approved by has the ability to be approved by the PNF.
We already did that though, did we not?
So
We approved $15,026
Because it was,
Because we were
shipping
using-
costs,
we
that
were
was kinda
using-
crazy on that.
funds. Yeah,
if I understand this correctly, and
Mhm.
I would need a motion to approve the budget transfer.
correct. Basically, that is the increase in small equipment of 15,000, and then the decrease in contingency fund of 15,000. And I put this together with administrative college, all these.
I would move that.
Second.
I said I would move that.
Motion made by Supervisor Powell, second by Supervisor Bonner. Any discussion? Okay,
Discussed it a lot last time.
all in favor, say by aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Now, Steve, you have to make sure it gets passed next week, and PNF, okay? Or yeah. Next item 10, update Parks Director on potential.
Oh,
What?
where I thought
We gotta vote on it.
future agenda,
No, no,
wait a
on-
minute,
on
where
number
are
10,
you on here?
On number 10.
Oh. I'm an idiot. I'm on the
I won't
wrong
say
one. What are you doing?
Update Parks Director on potential international pyrotechnics guild conference.
Yeah, so I just kept this, I figured I'd keep this in the standing agenda item until go or no go. So I don't have a lot to report on it at this point. That's new from our December meeting. However, what I will say is we're working on an MOU. The PGI did put an announcement on their Facebook page that they're intending to come to Oshkosh if they can work out all the planning details that are necessary and obtain all the necessary permits. We're working with an MOU, and simply the MOU is just more or less a memorandum of understanding. So as we work on the contract and finalize the contract, that we all understand what the terms are gonna be in that contract. We're hoping, actually, that's what I was in a meeting before this, so we're hoping to have that done within the next week. So the last piece, in terms of, like I mentioned, approvals, the PGI did submit a fireworks permit. So as you know, they submitted previously a fireworks permit with the city of Oshkosh, and that was approved in November. And then when they reached out to the town of Oshkosh in November, it was right during election season, so smaller town. So they asked them to wait a little bit. So they did submit their permits with the town of Oshkosh, and they had a meeting last night. Unfortunately, I could not attend that meeting due to family. But they did, I did talk to one of the supervisors today, and he said that they did table it for 2 weeks. We'll bring it back for action 2 weeks from now. So as of right now, PGI is working on obtaining their required permits, because as you recall, the site's on 2 different jurisdictions. It's in the city and it's also in the town where the fireworks would be lit up. So at this point, yeah, they're working through their permits and we're working through the MOU. Hopefully we can get them coming.
I would understand Vice Chairman Farley, that the decision was not to the town board, but the town chairman.
Correct, yeah, according to town code, and every town's different, how they have it set up. It does say that it's approval of the town chairman, correct? It was on their board agenda though, so I was just reporting that it's on their agenda
So
for discussion last night.
I don't know town politics that well, but could the town chairman either deny or approve at any moment and just go over the board's head on this?
From what I understand from town code, now granted, I'm not gonna call myself an expert on town of Oshkosh code. From what I did see in there, it looks like it just says the approval of the town chairman.
Do they have they given you a timetable or PGI, when they'll definitely approve it or not?
No, because I know PGI submitted the permit. I mean, I got a call from PGI, contacts with them saying that they were gonna submit the permit Wednesday or Thursday. It was right before the holiday, so I was actually surprised it was on the town board already, or the agenda already. So it was nice of them to get it on the agenda for discussion, like you said. Yeah, I think the town chairman approves it or disapproves, so I'm guessing he put it on there for discussion.
And it's killed if the town of Oshkosh killed it, am I correct? Or
We'd
not?
have to figure out if there's any other way to launch fireworks and still have participants. That's the issue, is you need so much distance to be able to have the fireworks launching area. And then also have a safe buffer for the participants to sit and see it. And you need a sight line, obviously, without trees in the way and that type of thing. So this is, in terms of the amount of distance needed, this is the spot that's needed on the site. So we're hoping that we can get everything figured out, or they can.
Since this is the only time we get to look at this was when we approved the ordinance change of fireworks, so we understand it. I had brought up concerns, what one of the city council members had a concern about the animal shelter being close. Have we talked to them, PGI, about that at all?
We haven't yet. The animal shelter is about 2.5 miles away. So I mean, there's a lot of other fireworks shows that go off in the same area. I mean, we're definitely gonna contact residents, all adjacent property owners that about the property to let them know. I know there were previous letters 3 years ago when PGI worked through this process with agreements with property owners to help clean up their property or to get permission to go on their property to clean up. So there's gonna be a lot of correspondence that needs to happen at some point, correct? If this event's even coming here.
Okay, so we'll make sure we get.
Question, Mike.
Go ahead.
In the future, why don't we just get that annexed into the city and then we don't have to deal with the town of Oshkosh anymore?
I mean, one of the complicated parts of the property is that it is in multiple jurisdictions. So BMX is in, so the west side is in the town, the center is in the city, and the east side is in the town. So yeah, I mean, usually it's not, too much of an issue. But yeah, I mean, honestly, you do look at some things like if there was a fire pit type thing. I mean, yeah, a fire pit in one part of it, but you couldn't in another part, or maybe, obviously.
Right, well, county parks in the city, the expo's in the city, so we might as well try to get all our property annexed into the city. And then we only have to deal with a special event permit from the city of Oshkosh, rather than go to the town of Oshkosh or the city of Oshkosh.
Sure.
And I don't know, what do we need a permit from the town of Oshkosh for the fireworks for the people?
They need a permit, so PGI needs a permit to be able to light up fireworks in the town.
So we could light the fireworks off in the city, and the
Correct.
people could actually just be in the town as far as watching it. And then we wouldn't need a permit at all.
Yes, it would be logistically, it would be, I don't know how, so without having a map of the site, how to get back to that part of the Netzer property would be a question. I mean, not to say it's not possible. That's definitely an interesting question to ask PGI to see if we flipped it, what if that would work.
Right, I mean, I guess if they're not going to give us the permit, that would be our only option, even if we had to basically put a temporary road in
Mhm,
to get the people to the. Where they're just gonna be watching the fire, we don't need a permit for that.
Sure.
So we could launch the fireworks in the expo site. And they could watch them on the next door property and,
Hmm.
you know, we
Yeah.
do have that driveway coming in by the house,
Right,
so we could basically. Put a temporary road in there, which you're gonna have to put a road in eventually anyhow, because you have to get to it.
right.
So it's something that we'll be needing in the future. I'd hate to see us lose the event because Erdmer doesn't want to give us a permit and it's really up to him. If he wants to do it or not, and you heard that he's not gonna sign it. So if he's not gonna sign it, then we have to work around him.
Josh?
Off of that point, is there any way like we could show up to speak on this in front of him? Or, because that's
Yeah.
just what I gathered, like how would we get people to speak on behalf of this event?
So I mean, if they're gonna make a decision and I don't know if it sounds like they're bringing back in 2 weeks and I'm not sure if it's for a board vote or if it's just for discussion again before a decision is made, but obviously just like meetings, they're definitely public, open to the public. And what I was told from the board member today was 2 weeks from today, or I think they're on Mondays typically, so actually 2 weeks from yesterday.
Okay.
And we could do what you said, Steve, with the annexing to the city. I don't know, that's easier or hard to do. That's a question we have to talk to the corporation council about, so. Good idea, but yeah. Any other discussion on this? Jim, Karen? 11, Parks Director update.
Well, so working on the request for proposal for a comprehensive outdoor rec plan, hope to get that out early January here. So that way we can, now we have, as a reminder, we have all next year and then really we even have into the next year a little bit. So we have a lot of time on that. Had been putting in some time into obviously some other things like we've just been talking about here or like the shelters. So get that finished up. Grumman boat landing, the Grafe is almost back up online, so we will still have our bid opening in January. I've been saying that it absolutely still has to be in January, so we're still on track there as of today. Everything's still confirmed there, so that's exciting. In regards to the residents' question as well. So the dredge, so the permit for work on the land, so as I mentioned, kind of the whole working within the water. We can start work as of May, any work in the water as it pertains to the landings and the parking lot, so really the landings. The parking lot can start in March for, really it's all on land. The landings, so the part that goes basically from the parking lot into the water, we can't start till May 15th. The dredging permit, so that's where you're taking the sediment out of the water. That we've been working with the DNR on right now. We don't have an approved permit yet, because we submitted that about a month ago and it's a little longer permit, but we've had a lot of communication since then. So we do know that the work in the water, due to spawning of fish and other wildlife can start on June 15th. So we have to be out from March 1st-ish to June 15th. So then we would start dredging right away, June 15th. Our original plan was to reopen the landing July 1st. It's probably going to take about 4 to 5 weeks to do the dredging, so we'd be opening August 1st, so we'd be pushing back 1 month. If we do opt to do dredging in fall, the issue is the cost is going to go up because there's going to be mobilization, and then they're going to have to then they're going to leave the site, then they have to remobilize. So if we were to go out to bid, and that changes, that bid package is pretty much ready to go. If we do change that, there is a potential budget impacts to that. I mean, my proposal is that we get the project done, get it all done at one time. We can open it back up. But we're also dealing with spring weather in the sense of if spring weather isn't good, July 1st is a goal, July 4th weekend is a goal, but that doesn't mean that it's for sure going to happen either because it's spring. We might not be able to pour asphalt if it's real wet or anything like that until July. It just depends. Hopefully we have a good spring. But that is my only concern with pushing it to fall is that no matter what, we got to get the dredging done. And if we open it July 4th, and then now we have to communicate again with users that, oh, it's closed again. Let's just say October 1st is a example, because we want to make sure it's not frozen yet. And if it takes 4 to 5 weeks for the dredging process, it might even need to be in mid-September. Because we probably want to be out of there by early to mid-November. So, I mean, it's something we can talk about with the contractor, but that's what's going on with the Grumman boat landing. It's really just me, Justin, in the office this week. Tom is out, our park foreman is out. The staff did a great job. We're trying to clear the snow as best as possible over the weekend. We have our new weekend staff that we're working on changing. His name's Michael. So we're excited to have him on board. Trying to think, that's pretty much my update. There's been a lot of big.
Mike started today, right, Mike?
He started last week, a week ago,
Okay,
and then had to come back and, but anyways, yes, he started more officially today. So we're excited. We're excited to have been since end of July since we haven't had a weekend person, or a second weekend person.
here.
I have two questions. When they do the dredging, what kind of contents is there? Is there litter where people put in, I don't know, appliances and crap and, you know,
Hopefully not.
okay.
It's in the water, like in Lake Winnebago. So what it is.
And
for
my
instance-
my other question on that is,
Oh, yeah.
does someone have to examine that? I mean, looking for tossed away weapons and stuff. I mean, once it's dredged out, what happens to that stuff?
So what ends up happening, so the reason we dredge it is because it's too shallow right now.
Yeah.
So, in some spots it's a foot, 2 feet. I know they said there's a big boulder in it. We're hoping to get that boulder out. But basically, so we dredge it out and it has to de-water on site. So, the DNR has already looked at it and said that we don't have to test for, PCBs based off of where it's located. That's all done through the permit process. If there's any indication we have to test, then we would test on site, any of the material. We work with the kind of Outagamie landfill, because a lot of it actually goes to Outagamie, but we work with the Winnebago County landfill on where we can potentially take, but we're also gonna probably allow the contractor, if they want to take it, if it's clean fill, they can take it. So really, it's hopefully clay, and it just dewaters. So we have to leave it on site to let it dewater, and then they truck it off site.
Okay, then my second question. I remember a couple of months ago, you told us we had a contract with UPS to put new wraps around all their semi trailers.
Yep.
Well, there's a whole lot of them parked over there, but there's a lot of other things parked across the street, green things and blue things and big semi trailers. What are all those things parked over there
So
for?
we have contracts, just for them to use it as parking space. And then we also have a separate thing where they actually reached out to us to actually drive into the expo and do their wraps. That's all done overnight, and it's actually,
Has that happened?
yes,
Okay,
yeah, so.
so those UPS trailers that are out there now are not in there to be ready to be wrapped. They've already.
No, those are just they need, in the winter, they need extra parking area,
Okay,
for some of their trailers, so we have that open space, so we rent it out.
Okay.
Make it a little extra.
all right. That's all. Those are my two questions, Mr. Chairman.
I just got a comment, Adam, you wanna make sure that you get all the dredging and the material out of there before we do any of the asphalt work in front of there. Because you don't want them 80, 100,000 pound trucks driving on that brand new asphalt.
So they barge it out, that's gonna be their responsibility to make sure it gets barged out,
Barged
yeah,
out, okay.
exactly, and so that honestly is another factor to it, if we give them till August 1st, then if they decide so what it's called is means and methods, the contractor, we can't tell the contract, I mean, we can give some stipulations. But how to do their work, I can't go out there and say, you gotta use this backhoe instead of that backhoe, that type of thing. So, exactly, they may keep a path on one side of the property for hauling out, because it's gonna be cheaper to just take it out right there. Versus taking a barge, driving the barge back somewhere else, dumping the truck. So, to your point, exactly, it might also become more expensive, because now they're gonna have to figure out a way to barge it out. And then find another spot to dump it. Or somehow protect their brand new asphalt, which does open up, obviously potential damage to the
Yeah,
asphalt.
well, it's all fresh and it gets harder as it sits.
Yeah.
But when you start driving, there's no scale there, so they're gonna load those trucks, legally, they probably haul 80,000 pounds.
Right.
But with that water, they're probably gonna haul 100,000 pounds. And you won't even hardly see it, but when it rains, you'll see the indentations in that asphalt.
Yeah.
And then basically the water will sit there, freeze, it gets down the base and then it causes cracking.
Yeah.
So if they are gonna do it that way, then I would at least ask them to not put the top layer of asphalt on until,
Right, and that might be another route that they go as well too. And we have to give them a substantial completion date, basically, you're gonna end by this date in the contract, and that's how they figure out, well, how are we gonna do this? There is a little bit of room, like south of the bathroom where they could in theory drive around. But then they're gonna have to restore it, and there's still the drive, where we're redoing the drive coming in, because it's in rough shape too. They still have to drive on that drive, so. Yeah, I
Who
mean.
pays that also? We do that or the parks, I mean, the highway or who does that paving? Or the-
When you have a bigger project like this, we bid it all out as one, because a lot of times. You
So
might
our
even-
own highway department doesn't do it.
No, like you might even have like an MCC or Northeast Asphalt that generals the whole project.
Okay,
Because there's just so many different components to it. There's in-water work, there's a lot of asphalt work, there's structure, there's a lot of different pieces to the puzzle.
Okay.
In this case.
Yeah, okay.
No.
Josh. I just want to show how hardworking this guy, we did get the variance from the.
Oh, we did. Oh, no, we didn't. Sorry, we hear about it in January. So we attended the public hearing for the variance for the Grumman boat landing. We need a variance for it as well. For any work within 75 feet of the shoreline.
Staff update. Justin?
Not too much. Shelter reservations are opening, the first business day of the new year, so January 3rd. And then we also have the county boat landing permits available, will be available the same day to buy online too.
Could I ask you to send, is there a Facebook event for the event we're having with Parks Department? When is that event?
Have we created one yet?
I forgot to date it in the last.
For the candlelight.
The candlelight? Yes, yes, there is one out there.
And when is that?
Mhm.
Could you email that information? I forgot
Yeah.
last Tuesday when I gave a little report about the flooding shed that I was gonna give update at this next Tuesday, okay? And when is
Yeah.
that, when is that event?
The 20th to the 22nd, so there's 2 nights and then an afternoon on Sunday.
Okay.
Do that.
All right. All right, anything else, Justin?
Nope.
Committee updates, I'll go to Jim,
Nothing.
Steve,
just a couple, that arch. We planted flowers around it, but that didn't even get up, not even 6 feet. Can we do something a little, I mean, it's supposed to be covered in flowers sometime in the summer. And that never got,
Like a grapevine was supposed to, yeah.
yeah, and it's gonna start all over because it's all dead now again. So it's like, we spent $35,000 on that arch and it's supposed to be a flowering arch. And there's,
Oh, where's the arch at?
if you come in County Park and you take your first right all the way to the back.
Yep.
It's right there. There's supposed to be a nature walk.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's an arch over that, and that was $35,000, but it's supposed to be all covered with flowers.
What did
and
we plant?
So that was like right when I got here. We had already ordered grapevines from somewhere. And the idea, so the arch has these cables, and the idea is that it will eventually. So we just gotta figure out if we're gonna still try to do the vine concept or do more just flowers. Obviously it'd be nice, that's the whole reason for the cabling. So we'll probably gonna still try to go that route. It's just obviously a little bit more finicky and a little bit more difficult to make happen, to get it started.
Sure.
So,
And then we did hit it with a mower. We should try to fix that.
yes,
It's like, we never even got it done and it's already damaged. We never even seen the beauty of the arch. We went to the county board and got $50,000 for that project. And it's like, I don't know, I was looking forward to it. I go out there all summer and I keep looking at, the plants gotta be growing. They gotta be growing and there's nothing there, it's.
Karen,
I have nothing.
Josh?
Nope.
I have a few things, minor details. It's a winter time and I know we've gone back and forth. Scheduled meetings at times. I just want to announce that we are at to schedule a meeting. We'll have it the week later at 5 o'clock. Tuesday. Hopefully we won't have to cancel any meetings and unless we have some reason to meet before that. If this meeting got canceled, I would say let's have it a week from later.
So you're saying like it's a January 24th, we couldn't meet for weather, then on the 31st would be at 5 o'clock?
I think that's simple and easier because
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, as I was saying, the following week at the same time, I'll do that. Okay? Secondly, I would appreciate Adam. You know, I'm sticking on this and Steve's report. That's the expo grounds. It's not the fairgrounds, and I'm a little uppity about that when I've heard that before, and Steve's been, and Steve Oshkosh, no, it's not the fairgrounds, it's the expo grounds, and we have to get in the habit of doing that. Lastly, also, if, just when you send me information about the candle, that, also more information about the, is it, what's the 360 or
920.
920, because I'll, and also, what I noticed that kind of want to be, also, have you thought about partnering in some way, a little bit? That makes that help for the health department, because it, you know, it's health related. And maybe this is, maybe like doing the video, maybe we have some type of a small type of walk, run event, at the Whitewash Trail or something, just partner with them somehow to see how you can include them, okay?
Yep, we've been looking for runs associated with, we're looking at a mud run this summer, potentially associated with this Bagel 920, so.
If there's a way we could do a walk run between, like, the rural part of this county that incorporates our trails, that'd be very interested, so that's an idea, okay?
Like a summer run? Like, do we do like a 5K or anything like that? Anybody ever done that on the trail?
Well, there's other group fusions, a nonprofit that does that on the trail. We're looking to set up a mud bubble color run.
Yes.
This summer at the community park.
Back in a mud, I know what a mud run is. That's a
Combine,
bubble
we're
color.
looking to combine all three. But nothing's official yet at this
I can
point.
imagine that's ugly.
We're in the planning stage, yeah.
Doc should be right there, won't you?
I mean, I'm not opposed to that. It sounds fun.
Okay, so let's, community updates.
I got one more thing, Mike.
Sure.
I just like to apologize, Josh. I shouldn't have jumped on you, but we had a member that he tried to cut everybody off. He thought this meeting should last an hour. And I'm a person that I like to basically get everybody's opinion. And that's why, I kind of just got upset because I don't want to see us get to be where, we want to just run this meeting as fast as we can. But I shouldn't have basically been as forward as I was. So I apologize to you for being forward, but I just wanted to let you know that we had a member that he was always looking at his watch. I gotta be somewhere. And it's like,
Not me, I want to be here. I don't want to,
That was the chairman. That was the chairman of the committee.
and it's just like, the question's important to him, even though, I know that the city would look into it and I know Adam would take care of it. But he thought he had an important question, and every one of our questions are important to us,
yes.
and that's all I was trying,
I agree
but I
with that.
apologize to you for basically maybe being a little bit strong-headed.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I appreciate you saying something, because I was probably gonna take him afterwards and say, this is very uncharacteristic of Steve. He's not,
Well,
it really is not like you.
No, but the past chairman we had, it was like, we're gonna be here an hour, and it's like, go as fast as you can, don't talk too much, because, and it's like, I hate to ever see us get back to that,
Totally. I very much agree. I don't want to do that. I don't really care how long the meeting takes. I'll be here till, as long as it has to go. So, thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
Are we gonna talk about future agenda items, or we?
Our next meeting date, January 23rd,
Okay, that's.
2023 at 9 AM.
Is that right? Cause I put that down there. I was.
It was on my calendar.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I'm gonna say this, last time Karen promised me, between January, February, March, you three have to come up with a date, because right now, Tuesdays at 9 AM. Regular, but that we could discuss later, that's what I promised you, okay, that's them. Okay, 15, future agenda items, we have, camping.
Well, camping will come back, and then soccer, like shelter, we'll expand it to shelter fee discussion, or we'll come back for action.
I have asked. For now,
That's good.
I have asked Adam, and Adam said he doesn't know if we do different month each month to have the fair association come 1 month. And a Life Fest come another month, because we've not heard from either one for a while. I have also asked Adam, you two don't know us, or actually the three of you know. He has not decided that if we're gonna have user group meetings. I think you told me that, correct? If we have a user group meeting, that would probably be on a Saturday. I have told it fully up to Adam and his staff. And for your information, that's where we meet. But user groups, that's where anyone who uses the park, whether it's a group in this side of the park, the expo, they'll come together. They'll do some things to get information in general, and then they'll break off. It's been so attendance. Usually it happened on a Saturday. Oh, if we would have it probably not until February this year.
Yeah.
Would that be a meet, so would that be a thing on Saturday we would be expected to attend?
Yeah, expected, never expect anything, but you're. We'd be much appreciated to attend.
And what time?
Cause
I will say I volunteer every single Saturday morning
So
at
do
an
I.
organization,
So
and that would be hard to.
usually, it's, so we did it last year, February in the morning. I will say the reason why Chairman Norman's saying that we're debating while doing it is because we've been doing a lot of one-on-one meetings. These user group, there's so many different users that use our park and use the expo. We've been doing a lot more, like I mentioned, we met with rugby, we meet with these groups one-on-one, so. How much these groups are getting out of a bigger group meeting, that's where the question really comes in, because, yeah.
That's why I say, let's meet them every month. It only takes 15 half hour for one or two groups that do that. Two groups, obviously the Fair Association and Life Fest. I'll like at some point, maybe talk to the soccer groups, get an update on them. And whatever and is it probably better to have it before their season than during the season, because that's when they're most.
Typically, usually the winter is perfect for most people, in terms of
Next
groups.
agenda item. Last thing agenda, I would say right now, I'm thinking, Josh, part of this year. The parks tour will probably be in June, and I'd probably right now say it'll be in place where June meeting, so that's where I think that'd be appropriate. And we should be fairly nice enough that we can go outside, and Adam won't be busy, well, he's always busy, but it won't be busy that's, I'm gonna preach that unless something drastically changed. The June meeting probably would be our meeting plus the parks tour. And think of things around now, don't have to bring with a meeting to say, hey, Adam, we haven't seen this for a while or that for a while, and Adam can work it out. So that's what I wanted to announce. So, yeah.
Okay. Then I had,
Go ahead.
oh yeah, I know we don't normally speak to or comment on comments from the public, but are we gonna talk about, I thought the incentive program that the gentleman spoke about was probably something we should think about. If this is something we really want people to respond to, would we need to go to the county board for a $300 incentive, or would we, what would we need to do about that? If it's not gonna cost us anything, there's no point in discussing it, I guess, but if we really are gonna do an incentive program, if this is something important, we should put that on the future agenda.
I think what might be a good idea is to get the consultant on board, because I actually spoke with residents as well, and I think it is a good idea. I think we should get a consultant on board, and then that we can get their opinion on how to best also incorporate it, and then we could request, because we were gonna have time, the survey, it's not like if we have a consultant hired in February that we're gonna be sending out the survey in March.
Right.
So we'll have time from the time they get on board to basically say, hey, have you seen another community do this? Maybe they also, because they do these corps all the time. So maybe they've ran into a situation where another community has done this and they'll know, has it worked? Has it not worked? What's a good dollar amount?
Okay.
Those types of things.
Okay,
So I think it's a good idea.
that's what I wanted to say about that.
So you want Adam to look into it and maybe bring it up at. Well, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, the consultant, so
Yeah.
I'll let you have one comment, Jerry.
Okay, most of these, bigger places like Dick's, Shields, Fleet Farm, they have, different forms to fill out where you can, request funds, and I would think this would be something appropriate that they want to get involved in to find out what the county residents are interested in. And all it takes is filling out a form and requesting, that you want a certain amount of prize money, and it's not gonna cost, say you have a $500 Fleet Farm thing, it's not gonna cost them $500 because it's a gift certificate. I mean, it's probably gonna cost them about half of that. So that's maybe something you could talk to the consultant about. Can we, solicit some of these local merchants or retailers to maybe fund the prizes or whatever? Just a comment.
Thank you.
Before I ask for a motion to adjourn, any other comments, questions from the community members? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Supervisor Powers, second by,
I'll second it, okay? You mean, we're right by the fairgrounds.
second by Supervisor Ponder. All in favor, saying aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned, so Mr. Ponder has to stick around.
I had to throw it at you, Mike, I really.